Okay, I think we're recording. So this is Jessica Forsee,
And Alyssa Windsor.
and we are second year grad students at Georgia Southern University. And we will be presenting on Ballot Box, the personal is political, for this gamifying historical events panel for the Phi Alpha Theta conference. We really wanted to share Ballot Box with you all, mostly because we ourselves are a bit of presidential buffs, and we spent many summers pre-COVID going to presidential libraries. We've been to Kennedy, we've been to Nixon, we've been to Reagan, and all in them is a display of campaign buttons in each of the presidential libraries. And that's really what started our interest in presidential campaigns and what that means for the political atmosphere of the time and how that is reflective of changing American values. So last semester, we were in the Georgia Southern Digital Humanities class, historical games and experimental games. And we were finally given the opportunity to take our love for all things presidential and turn it into a rigorous research project that was still involved in digital humanities and exploring the human experience, all while figuring out how to do this on a digital platform in COVID while everyone's trying to connect and play games at the same time. So that's where Ballot Box comes into play. Ballot Box is what many would consider a reimagination of the 1968 presidential election. Our goal was to bring forth all of the political and social upheaval of 1968 and put players in that perspective to really live through the historical year of 1968.
So Ballot Box is collaborative by nature. So it's meant for you to put yourself in the shoes of people who were actually experiencing this as it was happening, and have real conversations about real rights and real things that were at stake at the time. And so players strategize to use what we call political action points to win across the 5 electoral regions. So this kind of puts you in a real life election. This is politically relevant. We made this in late 2020. And you win by forming a successful electoral college, a successful electoral coalition behind a preferred candidate. So you win when your candidate wins, and you have to push for and advertise for that candidate.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the game board that we had. So this is the game board that we have. Again, we really wanted to hone in on advocating for your chosen candidate, which you'll get from your voter identity card. But also we were inspired by the Monopoly board map of walking across the map while really wanting to teach, if this was being taught in classrooms, the electoral college map sort of to students. So we have these electoral zones because math is not a big fan of history people. So dividing up specifically through the electoral college states was a little bit more difficult. So we have these electoral regions. And again, it's all about emphasizing this collaborative nature of trying to win specific zones while winning the White House and the nominations, and really bringing forth this idea that you really want to push for a candidate that you think is best. So how do you decide what you think is best? We have this sort of idea known as historical creativity, in that there's a lot of what if that goes on in this game because of the way that information is presented to players. There may be a card pulled that kills a certain civil rights leader, but it goes unnamed. But there also may be a card that Bobby Kennedy never dies, for instance, because that card is never actually pulled. So it's all bringing forth this idea of what if and how things change and come about with different events in certain time periods.
So you're learning about events through breaking news, just as somebody at the time would be getting their political information. It's new, it's fresh, it's urgent, and it's going to sway your decisions when you're voting.
Yeah, so one examples of these are these Walter Cronkite breaking news cards that we have that really, again, these are all based on true events and research that we've done about events that happened in 1968. But just because an event like the Mexico City Olympic events that occurred, they may not occur around the specific time that it happened historically accurate. So again, it's just to emphasize this fast-paced environment to bring you what 1968 was like living in it that you couldn't otherwise get from a classic lecture style of teaching.
And so this is an example of the voter ID cards that we created. So you'll be given a name and an identity to use throughout the game. These are actually pulled from oral histories from NPR StoryCorps and from Brown University while the whole world was watching, a project that they did in 1998. We changed the names a little bit for copyright issues, but these stories are real. They are situations that you would see during the time. So, for example, we have Frank Russo, City Kid Turned Radical, and you can read these stories and put yourself in these positions and decide how you think that this individual would vote during the time, and even how these political event cards would specifically affect your voter identity and who that person was. What does this breaking news mean to Frank Russo as a voter?
Yeah, and I think that that's the best part about Ballot Box because as information is coming and you're playing as Frank or you're playing as Betty, you are interacting with other players, learning their specific stories and figuring out why they are choosing to vote for a specific candidate where you otherwise might not have gotten that information. So what we really wanted to do was open up a creative outlet for players to play somebody that they may not look like, someone that they may not pray like, or anything like that, and really get you into the mindset of what it was like to live in 1968 with these conflicting viewpoints, these complicated personal beliefs, and really understand how tumultuous that year was. And Alyssa's already stated, we made this game right in the 2020 election. So it was very interesting for us to be witnessing another historical event while writing about this in this historical creativity context. And that's the one thing that we really do love about Ballot Box. And the people that we've played with and we've done multiple play tests with, they've all said essentially the same thing. Like they didn't know that the year was that crazy. They didn't realize how stressful it was. They didn't think about the different viewpoints that they otherwise might not have. And one of my favorite ones is I didn't realize how delicate America was in 1968 until they started playing, until they started realizing how fast paced and rapid these events were occurring. So, yeah.
So you can visit our Ballot Box game website through Live Guides at Georgia Southern University, and you can print and play our board game. The game board is here, along with all the link to all of the cards, the rules, and also our game treatment if you want to read through and learn a little bit more about this extensive process. So go print Ballot Box and play today.
Thanks, everybody.